Welcome to the Night Hunting Podcast. This is Tony Abreu, your host, and this is a podcast for night hunters, and it's all about night hunting. And in this episode, this is episode number 17. And in this episode, we are going to be talking about night vision versus thermal. So that's what's happening. So let me just make sure. I think I'm good right there. All right. So night vision versus thermal. And actually, last week I actually go live every week. So I'm kind of streaming on Zoom as well as kind of combined with YouTube, and it is live. So last week, noticed that somebody had said something in the chat, and basically I missed that until the end of the video. So I'm actually trying to monitor the chat this time in case anybody does say something in there. But if it's your first time watching this or whatever, and there is a place for you to comment, just comment below, like where you're from, what state you live in or whatever. I am, again, Tony Abreu. I'm in Florida, North Central Florida, and been night hunting for a few years. And actually first started out dealing with night vision. And it's kind of cool because I'm going to talk about a little bit of that. But the first scope that I ever bought was a ATN X-Sight HD. I actually have it right here. This thing is like a brick. But yeah, it's a 5-power night vision scope. It still works, but it works kind of funky. Like at nighttime, it does something weird. So I just quit using it. But then after that, I actually had one of these first. This isn't the original one, but I had one. And then I bought a X-Sight 4K, which, by the way, is an amazing scope when it doesn't lock up. And funny thing about that, it's 2023. It's actually the middle of June right now. And ATN, in the last month or so, they've been shipping out their new X-Sight 5, and people are having problems with them locking up. So that's something that I was kind of afraid of. I don't really sell a lot of those. I mean, basically, I have a I sell night vision and thermal optics at Perceptive Outdoor Gear or perceptivegear.com. And I really don't sell. I sell ATNs sometimes, but only if people really want them. But I don't really advertise them, and I don't really sell a lot of them because they have issues. And I just wish they would fix that, because it's really annoying to pay $700, $800 for a scope and then it lock up all the time. And I say that because it's in their software somewhere, and it goes right into their 2000 to, they have thermal scopes anywhere from $1,000 to $4,000, and it goes right into theirs doing the same thing. And I know not everybody has issues, but some people do, and it's really frustrating and annoying whenever that keeps happening. So the ATN X-Sight 5 is out, and I'm seeing multiple people on different Facebook groups talking about how the way that they released it and how it's out right now, it's not as good as the X-Sight 4. And hopefully they can fix that, because it looks like a good platform. And their platform is really good as far as like the features and everything that comes along with it. It's just that it has problems with the software locking up. So, but this episode, we're talking about night vision, and I started out with those two scopes. And then I started getting into deer depredation in my area. There's tons and tons of farmland, from watermelons to peanuts to beans. Started making friends with farmers, and actually I'm related to a farmer as well, and started using these there. And then some of my friends had thermals already and I didn't. And, they would actually come out with me with the thermal, and the thermal was just on such a different wavelength as far as like what you could see and how far you could see and through the woods you could see and all this other stuff, that it definitely had its advantages. So what I want to do right now is I want to talk about the advantages and the disadvantages of night vision versus thermal. So starting out, number one, both scopes come with a base magnification. And to me, if you have longer shots, you want to have a higher base magnification. Like that scope I just talked about, both of those had 5 power base magnifications, which is huge, honestly. Any rifle scope that I ever had only had 3. That started out with 3, so it gives you a wider field of view. These had 5, so they definitely could see farther. But any shot under 40 yards, it was so hard to find the target, especially if it was moving with a 5 power scope, especially night vision, that is just hard to use. Now, the difference between night vision and thermal in that aspect is if you have a thermal that's 3, 4, 5 power, you're going to probably pick up the animal a little bit better with the thermal because of the way that it magnifies the heat in the screen. And so it might be a little bit better to pick that image up. But on thermal, it's just black and white. And really, you're just looking at, it just doesn't glow like it does on the night vision. Now, you can see eyes in night vision. So generally, whenever you see an animal, a lot of times a dead giveaway is if you're shining the red light in their eyes and it reflects back on you. So that's a great way to, it's kind of like they have their headlights on because the light reflects back. Thermal does not do that. Thermal just picks up the heat source. So something else too, night vision versus thermal. Night vision, you need an infrared light unless you have a super, super good sensor, or if you're using like Gen 3, which doesn't require a lot of light. And using that light sometimes can give away your position. Couple scenarios on that. I see a lot of questions that ask, can an animal see a light? It depends. I shot a deer one time at 30 yards with a bright light, infrared light, and they never knew I was there. Matter of fact, I shot the deer and it took me 2 hours to find it because I thought it was further away than it really was. And whenever I started rewatching the video, I was like, man, he's so close. And I was looking way far away and he never saw the light. So, but can they see the light? Well, here's another scenario. One time I shot at a deer at 200 yards and missed. And the next week I came back and put my light on them again in the same spot, and they took off running before I could even shoot. So that tells me that they associated that light with that bang, and they took off. So it's definitely something that you can see. And if, let's just say that you were looking straight into it, you can see it. But if it was just shining by your face, you couldn't see it. So, and another thing that I can tell you about that is the fact that whenever we first started doing the deer depredation, we would shoot and I would leave the light on and aim it towards where the animal ran into the woods or where I knew I shot him at. And then I would walk. We would walk or take the cart and drive up there. And as soon as I could see the light glowing back in my face, I knew we were on the right track and we could look for blood. So it's definitely visible if you're looking straight into it. Now, night vision, most of your night vision scopes come with infrared lights that are on the lower end of distance. They come and they basically give you anywhere from 100 to 200 yards max. But if you really want to get some good distance out of a night vision scope, you're going to want to upgrade your light anyways. And the light that I'm running right now is a Predator Tactics Coyote Reaper XXL. It's huge. It has a huge rechargeable battery and it shines a beam at 800 yards. And I know I can definitely say that that's true because I've seen tree lines that far with the 5 power scope. So it's really hard to see eyeballs that far, but I definitely have seen eyeballs at 550 yards with it before. But seeing that distance eyeballs, it was really hard to see what the animal was and tell what it was at that distance. So on thermals, you're looking at a whole different spectrum. Now, thermals, you're looking at heat. So a night vision, is great if it's in short grass or low vegetation. And it worked really good in the beginning of the crop season whenever we were hunting deer. But the higher the crops got, the harder it was to find animals in the stuff. They could hide in it, and it was really hard. But with the thermal, they can hide as well, but their heat shows through, and you can pick them up a lot easier in vegetation, and obviously in lower vegetation too. But in higher vegetation, you can pick up their body heat a lot easier than you can with a night vision scope. Another thing is we would be in the field and we would be looking into the woods where they would be coming out at, and to where you could see a deer 10 or 15 yards in the woods with thermal, you could not see it with night vision. So definitely has its, definitely has some advantages and disadvantages there. And then another huge advantage, or another huge thing to talk about with the night vision and the thermal, is that with thermal, you just have a black, whatever color palette you're on, you just have a heat source and you can see the outline of the animal. But unless you're really, really good at knowing how an animal moves, sometimes it's easy to get confused or maybe not have a positive idea on a specific animal. And when I say that, I'm talking about, like, if you were hunting near a neighborhood where there's coyotes and there's cow pastures, but there's also dogs. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between, like, say, a blue heeler and a coyote, because they're basically shaped almost the same, especially with their fuzzy tails and such. Also, I have seen, if you don't know what you're looking at on a fox versus a coyote in a thermal, sometimes it's hard to tell the difference there. So, and with thermals, it's a lot more, I'm going to say, two-dimensional. It's real flat. It's hard. Sometimes it's hard to tell your distance a lot. It's a lot harder to tell distance with a thermal than it is with night vision, because of how everything reads. But it's really hard to explain this, but it's just real flat. So it's just hard to tell distance. For me, a lot of times we have somebody in the group that has a rangefinder. So if you can get a range, that's cool. And I've actually had a rangefinder on night vision as well. I've had it on thermal as well. Having rangefinder is definitely beneficial no matter what, because when you're in the dark, things just look different. Things are different. If you're just hunting from a tree stand and you knew you were 100 yards, it's not really necessary. But if you're moving around a lot in fields that are small, big, and there's all this different range, it's really hard sometimes to tell the difference. So, that's something to consider. But an example of, being at a house with cow pasture behind, was at our buddy's house maybe a month and a half ago, and we were sighting in his gun, and we went out on the golf cart that night, and he didn't lock his dog up, and he has an older blue heeler, and I seen the dog running through the cows, and what it was doing was looking for him. But we moved closer and got a better look with the thermals, and the way the dog was moving, it had kind of a limp, and we quickly determined that it was a dog and not a coyote. So and we were calling, and it was looking, trying to figure out where we were, never found us. And then we ended up moving to the next field over and called again. There were two dogs in the back, and we ended up shooting one of them. So definitely got to be careful around houses with ID dogs. Now, I'm sure a German Shepherd kind of looks like a coyote, but kind of don't. But I'm sure a bulldog looks way different than a coyote does, and I'm sure you'll be able to tell the difference there. It's just really paying attention to the way an animal carries himself, and that goes for deer, that goes for hogs, it goes for anything with thermals. Thermals is definitely, it's definitely there's definitely a way to do it. And the more, I've had a lot of experience doing it, and I'm really good at, making a determination on whether it's a suitable target or not. So night vision versus thermal. Let's go into the next thing I want to talk about is fog. So night vision, when it's super humid out, your range is going to be limited, because a light can only go through so much humidity before it just starts reflecting back at you, which means that if it's foggy and you turn the light on, all it's going to do is eliminate the fog in your face. So that's going to limit you for what you're going to be able to see with night vision. But with thermal, depending on what kind of unit it is, most of the units now are pretty good in the fog. You may get some limited ranges in the fog, but you're definitely going to be able to see a lot more in fog with a thermal than you are with a night vision scope. So definitely the thing to consider there. Also, you know, with the same gas, fog, stuff like that, with a night vision scope, if you don't have your light under the barrel and you have it above the barrel, generally heat rises, and whenever you shoot, especially with an AR type muzzle brake where it shoots gas up top to keep the barrel down, whenever it does that, if you have your light on top, it's going to white your screen out for a second and make it harder to take follow-up shots. So a way to get around that is to actually mount your gun as far forward as possible and as low as possible, lower than the scope if possible. That's something definitely, if you need to take follow-up shots, that's going to help you out. As far as thermal goes, you don't really see the gases come up. You don't really see that. It doesn't really matter. But sometimes depending on what thermal you have and different, I run suppressors. Sometimes whenever your suppressor gets a little warm, you can see the glow from the scope, just because it starts to heat up a little bit and puts a little glow there. But nothing major there. So, but as far as to wrap this up and summarize it, both night vision and thermal definitely have great advantages as far as night hunting goes. We've came a long way from just using a spotlight and a gun, and the more these scopes are coming out, they're coming out with better sensors. They're coming out with crazy high resolution sensors, the video capabilities where you can video this stuff. But all the scopes are really cool when it comes to that. The night vision, aspect of night vision, generally you're going to be able to hunt. You can hunt in the daytime and in the nighttime with night vision and thermal, but with a night vision scope, generally you can flip your night mode into day mode and be in color. With most digital night vision scopes these days, you can flip it into color and actually use it just like a regular day scope. You can use thermal during the day, but your color palettes don't change. So your same color picture during the day is going to look the same as the nighttime, except for during the daytime, you're going to have a lot more heat and things are going to be a little different. So you're going to have to adjust the contrast a little more with, in the daytime versus nighttime. So, but most of these scopes record, most of them have, memory where they're either onboard or you can put memory in them. There's just a lot of cool things you can do with them. As far as my personal preference goes, right now I have one night vision scope that I like to keep. I like to keep one just for my boys because I have two small boys and it's fun for them to be able to shoot with scopes. So I do have one right now. It's on an air gun. Looking forward to doing some stuff with that. Although in the last, it's been crazy with the weather here. I'll talk about that in a minute. But then I also have a monocular right now that I use. It's thermal, 640 resolution, and has a rangefinder on it. And then I also have a 640 compact thermal, the Rattler, that I'm running on a 6.5 Grendel. So that's my go-to. Although my goal is to shoot a coyote and a hog with the air rifle, which is only a 25 caliber. But that's a fun little plinker, the air rifle, and I'm starting to get into the air rifles a little bit and learn a lot about them. So that's kind of cool. So that's kind of like what's going on right now. I do have both. Obviously the go-to is the thermal. It's really hard to hunt with night vision when you're hunting around people with thermal because they can just see so much better than you can. And, it just, to me, it puts you at a slight disadvantage. But, having a monocular and a thermal definitely helps bump up the edge. And if you're running thermal and thermal, that definitely helps as well. So that's it for the night vision versus thermal. Next, we generally talk about what's going on with me. So in the last week, I really have not been hunting. It's the weather has been so crazy here. We've just been getting hammered with rain after rain after rain after rain. I mean, I didn't even work today because it was raining. So don't really have any good stories to tell except for the fact that need to get out and do some testing with the air gun. The air gun that I'm shooting right now is a Air Force Talon SS, and it has extra suppression on it, so it's super quiet. I am shooting a 55 grain slug out of that, which is a little heavy, but I think the heaviness is going to be good for trying to kill a pig or a coyote with, although I am going to get some lighter pellets to do some squirrel hunting and stuff like that. But that's definitely what's going on with the air rifle portion. Last weekend, we were supposed to go out with my buddy who I hunt with all the time. I'm going to call him G. And he actually has a friend that found a den, and we were going to go hunt that. But again, the night we were supposed to go, it was just storming the whole night, so we didn't make it out. So hopefully we can get around there and get into some of that this weekend. Although, like I said, the weather is just crazy. So, but that's pretty much it for this podcast. It's going to be on the little shorter side this week. I definitely, am learning different things about doing this and trying to get better. Right now, this podcast is sponsored by Perceptive Outdoor Gear, which is perceptivegear.com. We sell night vision scopes, we sell thermal scopes, we sell batteries. Mainly, we sell a lot of batteries for different scopes, external battery packs, and working on, making that better always. If I can help you with any kind of, any kind of information or help you make a decision on a different different scopes that are available that you might want to grab, you can always email me at tony@perceptiveoutdoors.com. And if you go to the website, perceptivegear.com, the phone number is right on the top middle of the screen. You can always call, you can text, however you want to reach out. I'm always here. This is kind of like my favorite thing to do. And that's pretty much going to wrap up this video for this week. So if you like the podcast, definitely subscribe. If you like this episode or any other episode, definitely smash the like button. And I guess we will see you on the next episode next week for episode 18. I'm not sure what that's going to be yet, but I generally will figure it out before we get there. So have a good week. Happy hunting, and we'll see you next time.